Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today we're going to look at some early Raging Bolt deck lists today here on the second channel. I'm excited for Raging Bolt to come out. I think this card is looking pretty promising. It's going to be a really fun card to play because there are a lot of ways you could theoretically play it. There's a lot of different energy acceleration engines, and I'm excited to see what Japan has cooked up for their Raging Bolt EX decks. Like I said, I think this card has some promise. It's very similar to an old Bucephalon GX, which used to be pretty good back in the day, and it reminds me a little bit of like Amazing Rare Rayquaza from like the previous format. So we'll have to see how Raging Bolt does when it does come out in Temporal Forces. But for now, let's look at some early deck lists here for Raging Bolt and see what Japan is cooking up for their Raging Bolt deck list. I am going to be using PokeCookBook here to look at the early deck list, and I also have Justin Basil's website pulled up here to actually look at some of the scans and translations for some of the cards if you don't know what they do, so you just know what every single card in a deck does, which I think is pretty important. So if you are new to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below and all that good stuff, and leave a like on the video if you go on to enjoy. But without further ado, let's get into it. Let's look at some Raging Bolt deck lists here from Japan. All right, starting things off here, we do have a Raging Bolt deck list that uses the Lost Zone engine. Now, this is one of the more interesting ways, I think, you could play Raging Bolt, and that is with the Lost Zone. Of course, you can use Mirage Gate to power up your Raging Bolt. And I guess we should pull up what Raging Bolt does here real quick. So yeah, if you don't know what Raging Bolt does, it does have the attack Climatic Descent, which for a lightning and a fighting energy, and keep in mind, Raging Bolt is an ancient Pokemon, you do 70 damage, and you may discard any amount of basic energy from your Pokemon. This attack does 70 damage for each card discarded in this way. So you are able to do a ton of damage for the amount of energy you have in play. And in fact, being able to do 70 times as the multiplier is actually pretty good. I mean, 3 energy is 210, 4 energy discarded from play is 280. You just have to find a way to get energy into play. Its first attack isn't bad either. Bursting Roar, discard your hand, draw 6 cards. Not a bad attack. If you have a dead hand going second, you can Bursting Roar. Plus, Raging Bolt has a whopping 240 HP. This is a very thick Pokemon. So Raging Bolt definitely looking good with the attack and its health. And of course, like I said, playing it in the Lost Zone does seem to make sense, because, of course, you can use Mirage Gate to put energy into play. In fact, since Raging Bolt does require fighting and lightning, you do need 2 different energy types, so Mirage Gate is a pretty good partner for Raging Bolt. There's also Sada. Obviously, Professor Sada's Vitality is going to be a very strong card to have within Raging Bolt 2, because it does allow you to get 2 energy in play for your attack. So you can use Sada and Mirage Gate to put energy in play. The weird thing about this kind of engine, though, is you have to play both Colress and Sada in your Lost Zone deck, which is something they usually don't see in these type of Lost Zone decks, is playing like that many heavy supporters besides the Colress. Like, usually it's 4 Colress, a Roxanne, or like a couple Claras, maybe a Raihan, and a boss. This has to play 4 Colress for Sada, but you can use the Colress and the Flower Sex to get you to 7, and then, of course, you can start using Sada in the late game with the Mirage Gate. You are playing Lightning Energy. You can also use Iron Hands EX in the deck, which is obviously really good in this type of archetype, because you can build it up with Mirage Gate pretty quickly. And then there's also Shaman, which this deck decides to play. This deck did get top 16 in a tournament. You can use Shaman as another attacker here to help against Charizard. Charizard could be tricky. You do need 5 energy in play to one-shot a Charizard EX, so it ain't going to be easy to take that thing down. There's also the Great Tusk in the deck that can help mill. You do have Greninja and Iron Bundle in the deck as attackers. Yeah, just having all these different energy types makes sense when you combine it with Sada and Mirage Gate. So yeah, Lost Zone, Raging Bolt, we're probably going to be seeing more of these decks here as we scroll down. There's also Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks. Now, this is the most obvious pair for Raging Bolt, and that's to pair it with Sandy Shocks EX. Sandy Shocks EX does have that ability where once your opponent takes 2 prize cards, you can put a fight energy from your discard pile onto Sandy Shocks once you're in your turn. So it basically has Galarian Moltres V's ability for fighting energy, but of course your opponent does need to take the first 2 prize cards. If you can put like 3 Sandy Shocks in play, you're already putting 3 energy into play just like that, plus the attachment for turn is 4, then a Sada. I mean, that's 6 energy you can put into play in like 1 turn with this deck in the mid to late game, which is kind of insane, to be honest. That's one of the selling points of playing Raging Bolt with Sandy Shocks, is Sandy Shocks seems to be the perfect partner for Raging Bolt's attack. It's also a fighting Pokemon, so you get a bit of type coverage. This build here is all about just utilizing the Sandy Shocks and the Raging Bolt. We do see cards like Mew EX and Squawkabilly in the deck. There's also the Weird Ear V in the deck. Not a bad idea. So you put so much energy into play with Sada and Sandy Shocks, you could get away with having a weirder late game attack with that Psy Shield. The Bash attack, pretty interesting concept. The one thing to note about this build, there's no Gutsy Pickaxe, and I'm sure we're going to see more Gutsy Pickaxes as we scroll down. Also, Prime Catcher being the A-Spec over the Awakening Drum, which I think is like the perfect A-Spec for this deck. Draw a card for each of your ancient Pokemon in play. You could play that in the deck over the Prime Catcher, but I guess Prime Catcher does have more utilities overall. There's another Sandy Shocks Raging Bolt deck here. This one doesn't have Weirder, but it does have a Koraidon in the deck here, which we can quickly pull up the Koraidon. So this thing is pretty good. It's a really good one-price attacker in these ancient decks, doing 30 damage for each of your ancient Pokemon in play. If you're full board of ancient Pokemon, you could do 180 damage, which is insane. For 2 energy, this thing can be powered up with a single Sada's Vitality, which is pretty darn good. So the single prize Koraidon is a really good partner to play within Raging Bolt. You can see here 3 Sandy Shocks, 3 Bolts, 1 Greninja, 1 Squawk. Pretty simple stuff. There's the 4 Ancient Booster Capsules, 8 Energy. Again, there is no Gutsy Pickaxe in this deck. We'll have to see if any of these Raging Bolt decks incorporate Gutsy Pickaxe. There's a Thornton in the deck. Thornton's a cool card to play with Sandy Shocks, because you already put the energy on it. You can Thornton and do something with that. We got another Lost Zone Raging Bolt. Now, this is like a future box Lost Zone Raging Bolt deck. There's a lot to digest here. So it is, of course, your typical Lost Zone pile. You got all these attackers in the deck. You got the energy types assortment. You got the 4 cores for Sada, like we saw earlier. And in this build, there's a lot of future Pokemon. Again, when you're playing Mirage Gate, you might as well play some of these extra, energy types. We do see the Shaman V in the deck once again for Charizard. There's the Iron Hands, Iron Leaves, and Iron Boulder in the deck. So you can take a look here at Iron Boulder real quick. I'm sure some of you guys haven't really seen what this does yet. It isn't really that popular right now in any deck. It's got the attack of Repulsor Axe, which for 2 energy does 60 damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, even if it gets knocked out, you put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. I mean, that's not a bad attack. You do have 240 HP, you're a future Pokemon, you're kind of tanky. I guess you can be a little annoying with that attack. And then your other attack, Power Stomp, does 200 damage. This is probably more of like a deck where you probably just don't want to attack Iron Boulder. Kind of like if you're playing like Lycanroc EX, for example. That's probably what Iron Boulder is good for. I'm not sure what matchup the Iron Boulder is in this deck for, to be honest. Like, other than maybe against like Iron Hands. Which I guess, to be fair, Iron Hands... Iron Crown has become pretty popular right now in Japan, so I'm sure like having an Iron Boulder makes that matchup a little bit more winnable. You do have the Flutter Mane in the deck to shut off abilities, and the Iron Leaves. I guess we can quickly read what those two do, just in case if you are wondering. Flutter Mane's got the ability when it's in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon have no abilities. It's only the active, not the bench, keep in mind. And then, of course, Iron Leaves is a very strong card because it's very good against Charizard with its ability Rapid Vernier, where you can play it from your hand on your bench, and then you can switch any amount of energy you want to it, and then it has Prismatic Edge, doing 180. Really good attacker against Charizard EX, which is, you got the grass in the deck. You already have Shaman and Leaves. So you already, theoretically, you should have a good Charizard matchup. You have Bolt for a one-shot, you have Shaman for a one-shot, and Iron Leaves for a one-shot. Or you can go Hands, Shaman, Leaves. You don't even have to use Raging Bolt against Charizard, to be fair. All right, we got another Lost Zone Raging Bolt. Once again, playing the Iron Hands, playing the Flutter Mane and the Iron Leaves. No Shaman in this deck, and no Iron Boulder either. And then here's where things get spicy. So Gardevoir... Raging Bolt. Now, I have seen this talked about recently. Now, I think I did a tier list for Temporal Forces decks for the Champions League that happened last week. I did a tier list for that, and I think Raging Bolt Gardevoir was on that tier list, and I was like, I don't know if this is actually a real deck. Now, this deck did get top 16 in a tournament here in Japan. Now, I am not sold on this deck just yet. So the idea of the deck is, instead of using, hyper energy acceleration, trainers, you can use Gardevoir EX's ability to put energy into play for your Raging Bolt. So you kind of play like a weird version of Gardevoir where, you have Raging Bolt as an attacker. So the idea of the deck is you have to build the Raging Bolt up with Sada. You have to put the Fighting and Lightning on it with the Sada, whatever, attach. And then you can use Gardevoir's ability, put a bunch of Psychic Energy on one of your Psychic Pokemon, and then you can Raging Bolt, discard those energies to take a big one-hit KO. So you're kind of like a half Gardevoir, half Raging Bolt deck. You still have some things in the deck, like the Cresselia, you got the Flutter Mane, you got Gallade and stuff. But you do have the Raging Bolt in the deck as another attacker. You also have Screamtail too. So it's an interesting concept. I don't think it's that good. I don't even know if it's consistent. The idea is definitely there. Like, in theory, you can use Gardevoir's ability, put 5 Psychic Energy onto Gardevoir EX, right? And then you can discard the 5 Psychics with Raging Bolt, and then you can, knock something out for like 1,000,000,000 damage. The problem with this deck is, how consistent is it really? I'm not too sure. You do have a good draw engine. You are playing the 4 Refinement Kirlias, so you do have a draw engine in the deck, so maybe pulling off this combo of Sada, Gardevoir to do Raging Bolt isn't as hard as it looks. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I'm not sure it's good, but who knows? Maybe Guardy Bolt is actually a good deck, and we're all sleeping on it. We got another Gardevoir Raging Bolt deck here. This one's a little bit more simple. We do have the 2 Screamtail, the 2 Raging Bolt, Manaphy Greninja, and then the 2 Gardevoirs, instead of having all the other Psychic Pokemon in the deck. But like I said, this concept is definitely very interesting. I'm not sold on it yet, but the concept is there. And in theory, it can work. And you do get a bit of boost with Screamtail. You can snipe off Squawkabilly and stuff, which is pretty popular. You can play the Hero Cape A-Spec card, which I guess we can pull up here, which is a good A-Spec to play with Screamtail, because what you can do is the Pokemon this card is attached to gets plus 100 HP. So you can put that on your Screamtail, and then your Screamtail can do even more snipe damage. Or you can put it on to like sponge damage with Gardevoir's ability for Raging Bolt's attack. All right, we got another Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks deck here. This one is using a 1-price Sandy Shocks. I don't think there is a translation on Justin Basil for this Sandy Shocks. I can take a look real quick. I don't think it's here, though. Yeah, it's not there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that card does exactly, but it is an interesting card. I don't think it does anything crazy. I think it's just like a 1-price attacker that does damage. I don't think it does anything special for Raging Bolt. It's still just, the Koraidon Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks combo. It does have a Pidgeot V in the deck. Interestingly enough, there's no Forest Seal Stone with the Pidgeot V. I feel like if you're playing Pidgeot V, you might as well play the Forest Seal Stone, but it's got catchers in the deck. A lot of these Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks deck we've been actually seeing have been utilizing Pokemon Catcher. All right, we got another Raging Bolt Lost Zone Engine deck playing the hands and the Iron Leaves. It does have a Raikou V in the deck. I do like that idea. Not because you already have Raikou. You might as well play the Raging Bolt Raikou combo, bro. Why not? It's kind of a cool idea. You're basically playing 2 Raikous in one deck. But Raikou's really good because it's great against Lugia. It's great against Palkia V-Star, which are 2 pretty popular Pokemon right now. And obviously Pidgeot's another Pokemon you can hit for weakness with this too. We got another Lost Zone deck. Now, this one doesn't have as many attackers that are different types. It's actually just strictly, you got the Slitherwing in the deck for the fighting. You got the Iron Hands. You got a Fluttermane. Still have Iron Bundle and Greninja with some water energy in the deck. But you do have the Raging Bolt. But there's no Iron Leaves. There's no grass in this deck. So this build is really trying to just capitalize on the 3 types, the Lightning, the Fighting, and the Water, which, isn't too bad. Now, the Lost Zone build, playing Sableye this time around, so instead of having all the different types, you do have the Sableye in the deck, instead of playing Grass Pokemon. You got the Iron Hand still in there, you got the Fluttermanes in the deck. There's even a Cobalion in the deck to let your Pokemon do 30 more damage to the Dark Pokemon. Now, I don't know if Cobalion really fixes much math for Raging Bolt. I guess you can discard 3 energy with a Cobalion and play to knock out Roaring Moon EX, but against Charizard, if you use 4 energy, you're only doing 280. With the Cobalion, you're still just short on the KO. So I'm not sure what the Cobalion fixes the math for. Like, I don't know if you really need it for Charizard, right? Because if 5 energy knocks out a Charizard, I'm pretty sure, right? So you don't really need, because you can't go 4 energy plus Cobalion. If you could, that would be nice, but I don't think you can. All right, we got another build of Raging Bolt. Now, this one's also spicy. We got a Garchomp Raging Bolt. Now, Garchomp does seem to be a pretty decent partner for Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt does require, fighting and lightning. Garchomp's attack does accelerate fighting energy from your discard pile onto your bench. So you can, in theory, use Garchomp EX's attack to put energy to your bench Raging Bolt. I definitely like that idea. You are able to get Garchomp out fairly easily thanks to Irida. You still have Sandy Shocks in the deck. You can play the Sada still to accelerate energy. Garchomp can put 3 fighting energy into play for free, and if your Garchomp doesn't get KO'd, that's another energy that you have in play thanks to the energy that's already on the Garchomp when you did the attack. So you could actually do some big damage with this Raging Bolt Garchomp deck. It is a bit of a reload and refill type combo where you have to go Raging Bolt and then you have to go back into Garchomp. You have to kind of intertwine between the two, but it definitely is an interesting concept that I like. Garchomp, Raging Bolt seems kind of cool, and I definitely rate it. Definitely am going to be excited to potentially try this when Temporal Forces comes out. It's another Garchomp Raging Bolt here. It's actually playing, is that an Excadrill? It is an Excadrill. I don't know what that's for. There's 2 Drillbur in the deck, which I think it is a proxy here. Yeah, we got this Drillbur. When you play it from your hand on your bench, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic fighting energy and discard them. So Drillbur gets you 3 energy into the discard pile for free, which is really, really good for Garchomp, right? And that immediately synergizes with its attack. And then, of course, the Excadrill is probably just there to evolve the Drillbur to attack. Makes sense. Some One Prizer can attack Mimikyu and stuff. It's also playing Pidgeot EX in the deck. Kind of like a Charizard build with the Arven and stuff like that. But you do have Irida, which is like better for Garchomp over Arven. Another Lost Zone Raging Bolt here. This one does have the Sandy Shocks in the deck too, which I don't think is a terrible card to play in the Lost Zone Raging Bolt deck still if you're going to run it. But yeah, it does have the Iron Hands in the deck. It's got Slither Wing still, Flutter Mane. We got another Sandy Shocks build of Raging Bolt, playing Mew EX, playing the One Prize Koraidon, and the Flutter Mane Prime Catcher CA spec. Yeah, Sandy Shocks Raging Bolt looking pretty good. We got another Sandy Shocks Raging Bolt looking similar to the other one. This one does have some Gutsy Pickaxes, though. This is what I was saying. It does seem like a decent card to play in this deck. Gutsy Pickaxe lets you reveal the top card of your deck. If it happens to be a fighting card, you can attach it to one of your bench Pokemon. So it's a great way to get extra energy into play. You do have to play a lot of fighting, and this build only plays 6. There's no, there's not playing the new Mallow supporters, so I'm not sure it's going to be as consistent, but I do like it. Just a bit more turbo with the pickaxes and the trekking shoes. Another Garchomp Raging Bolt. This one got top 16. Yo, is Garchomp Raging Bolt going to be a thing? I'm excited, man. I want Garchomp to be good. Garchomp EX seems like it has potential to be good. And if Miraidon is falling off a little bit, even though in the last video we did where we looked at lists from Japan, Miraidon's actually starting to make a bit of a comeback. And that's probably because of how popular Lugia is right now in Japan over anything else. But we'll have to see if Garchomp Raging Bolt can do good. We got another Gardevoir Raging Bolt deck here. Playing the Screamtail, the Mimikyu, and the Flutter Mane in the deck, and the Galley. Looking similar to the other Raging Bolt list we looked at earlier on in the video. Got another Sandy Shocks Raging Bolt here with 2 Koraidon in it. We got a Lost Zone build here of Raging Bolt, plain Iron Hands, and the Slither Wing. Yeah, Hands makes sense. I feel like Hands, Raikou probably be the 2 most obvious partners you can put in the Lost Zone deck because you already have the Lighting Energy in there. And then we got a really cool Goldengo Raging Bolt deck. So this is an interesting concept. So the idea is you have a bunch of different energy in the deck for Goldengo, and then you have Raging Bolt as an attacker in the deck too. So instead of playing Palkia, it opts to play Raging Bolt. It might not seem like there's much synergy, but it kind of makes sense. You can use Sada after you discard energy with your attack from Goldengo, and then you can get the energy into play on your Raging Bolts with the Sada. Take big knockouts. Really cool concept. It actually got top 16 too. It actually did decent in this tournament. It's an interesting idea because, yeah, you can use Goldengo, discard a bunch of energy, and then you can Sada those energies you discarded onto your Raging Bolts, get them into play. There's no Sandy Shock in the deck, so I guess, I don't know if you're a bit slower with the energy acceleration in the late game. I don't know. It's a cool idea, though, and I don't know. It's an interesting concept. You have a lot of draw in the deck, too, with the Goldengo and the Sada. You can draw a lot of cards in one turn. We got another Sandy Shocks build playing the Barrel. Also playing that TM that allows you to put energy into play, which is interesting. That isn't a bad idea. That can actually set up for a Raging Bolt a bit quicker in a match. It did get top 8 too, so it actually didn't do too bad. Yo, more Garchomp Raging Bolt here. You love to see it. Now this one is interesting. This is an archetype I'm excited to try out, and that is going to be Palkia Raging Bolt. Now, Palkia Raging Bolt, I think, has potential. So, Raging Bolt, I think, it can work kind of by itself, right, with the Sandy Shocks. But having Palkia in the deck actually seems like it could be a cool idea. So, the idea of playing Palkia is it has 2 purposes. It's a really good early game attacker, right, with that big attack. Because a lot of the time, to make the deck work, you kind of have to take, you have to give up those first 2 prizes so that your Raging Bolt can, work with Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks doesn't activate right away. So what you can do is you can attack with Palkia V-Star early on in the game and just put on a ton of damage. Palkia, of course, does have that really strong subspace swallow attack. It's a great way to take early prizes. You can take an early 2-prize KO with Palkia. You can use Radiant Greninja if you want with Star Portal as an attacker too. And you can also use Palkia's Star Portal ability with Raging Bolt's attack. So the idea of Palkia is you can Star Portal 3 water energy into play that you can discard with Raging Bolt's attack. Combine that with energy attachment and Sada, you can get 6 energy into play in a single turn with this combo. And that's what I think I like about it. I think Palkia Raging Bolt actually has potential as an archetype, right? We're seeing Palkia succeed right now with Goldengo, and it's kind of a similar idea where you want to use the Palkia early on, you have a little bit of aggression with Greninja, but it allows you to kind of work towards a later game where you can take big KOs with the Goldengo, and this way you can take big KOs with the Sandy Shocks Raging Bolt combo. So Palkia, I think, is actually a really good partner for Raging Bolt, and I think it's a very underrated concept that I haven't really been seeing too much of, but I'm actually very excited to try this out. I think there is a lot of potential in a Palkia Raging Bolt deck. All right, we got another Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks here. Once again, And then we got another Lost Zone build playing Sableye in the deck, also playing a Mimikyu in the deck too, and has the Raikou and the Iron Hands package in the deck for the Lightning Pokemon, also playing that Crisis Punch technical machine. And we got another Sandy Shocks build. We're just going to scroll through some of these because we've been seeing a lot of the Sandy Shocks build. There's actually a lot of Raging Bolt decks here to look at. We got another Lost Zone engine playing Slitherwing and the Iron Hands. We got another interesting Sandy Shocks build here. Once again, playing 4 Gutsy Pickaxe. So really going all in on the Gutsy Pickaxe. Playing some catchers too, and Prime Catcher in the deck, and the one boss. I guess if you're playing Sada constantly to put energy into play, you need to have some form of Gust. So I guess you have to play Prime Catcher over the Awakening Drum. And it makes sense why there's also Pokemon Catcher in the deck too. And then we got another build here with Sandy Shocks and Koraidon. We got another Guardy build here of the Raging Bolt deck. This one is Raging Bolt with 4 copies of it in the deck. It's just all in on the Raging Bolt, 4 of them. There's also 2 Screamtail. Mew EX isn't a bad idea either. Mew can be powered up with Gardevoir, don't forget, so it does give you another attacker. I actually really like this build here of the Guardy Raging Bolt. Very simplistic. It did win a tournament too, looks like, right? So we got another Lost Zone engine here for Raging Bolt, playing the Iron Leaves and the Iron Hands. Also still playing at 1 copy of that Sandy Shocks EX in this deck too. We got another build here, once again, with Sandy Shocks and the Koraidon in here. And another Sandy Shocks one. Playing some Water Energy in the deck. Ooh. And it's also playing Energy Switch. So it's kind of playing like a Roaring Moon deck with Greninja Water Energy, where you can try to build up the Radiant Greninja with the energy switches after you do Sada and attaching. So that's interesting. And you got Prime Catcher in the deck too, so you can definitely pull off some big combos with the Radiant Greninja. I don't hate that. All right, another Sandy Shocks build here. Playing the Koraidon does have that Drillbur in the deck to discard the fighting energy for your Sada, which is an interesting idea. And then also has that Pidgeot in the deck. And just play Forest Seal Stone this time with the Pidgeot V. It did get top 4 in a tournament too, so this build here did seem to work. There's some energy switches in the deck. Yeah, the Drillbur is cool to get energy in the discard. You do have Greninja and stuff and like Ultra Ball to get you there, but Drillbur doesn't hurt either to have. And we got another build here with Sandy Shocks once again with energy switches and stuff. And that one does play the Awakening Drum. There's more ancient Pokemon in the deck. There's 2 Koraidon, 2 Fluttermane, and 1 Greninja. So there's really 1 non-ancient Pokemon. So at most your Koraidons can be doing at least 150 if Greninja's in play. Ooh, this one here is playing Koraidon EX. Now, this is another way you could theoretically play Raging Bolt is with Koraidon. So, of course, we know Koraidon's got that ability, Dino Cry. You can put, 2 fighting energy from discard pile into play for free. Your turn will end when you do the ability. However, on your first turn of the game, you can set this ability up and then get 2 energy into play for your following turn to then have a bigger pop-off turn with the Raging Bolt. So, the idea of playing Koraidon makes sense in all honesty. I don't hate it, right? It allows you to get energy and play a lot quicker. Again, Sandy Shock's ability doesn't activate right away, so you kind of need some way to do an early game attack. And Koraidon EX makes sense to put more fight energy into play quicker for your Raging Bolt. I like that idea. Definitely seems pretty good for this deck. All right, we got another Sandy Shocks build. Again, playing that 1 price Sandy Shock, I can't, I don't know what it does, but I don't think it's anything too crazy. Hopefully not. I don't think so. All right, we got a Raging Bolt with Water Energy, once again, with the energy switch for the Greninja, playing Prime Catcher and Counter Catcher. Also playing the Great Tusk. That's an interesting idea. If you want to play Raging Bolt, you could play Great Tusk in the deck. That'll help a lot in certain matchups. It could be good against control. It just, again, being able to mill your opponent is very, very powerful, and that's where that Great Tusk does come in handy in the deck. Ooh, this is cool. We got a Garchomp Palkia build here of Raging Bolt. So playing 2 different engines in the deck. Has the Garchomp EX in the deck for the energy acceleration, but also has the Palkia V-Star idea in the deck, too, that I brought up. So that's interesting. It's got a lot of attackers in the deck here with the Palkia and the Garchomp. I don't hate it. It does make sense. Again, you can Energy Excel with Garchomp. You can kind of Energy Excel with Palkia with that Star Portal to power up your Raging Bolt's attack. Yeah, I think it works. I think it seems pretty cool, and I rate the idea. Again, I like the idea of Palkia Raging Bolt. I mean, combining Garchomp and Palkia together is definitely interesting. I'm not sure if it's super consistent, but it could be good. It could be cool, nonetheless. All right, we got more Sandy Shocks here. Another Lost Zone build, playing the Shaman and the Iron Leaves again. And we got another Palkia Raging Bolt deck. And again, I'm very excited to try this out. Palkia Raging Bolt, I like a lot. The deck also, I like it too. It's got the Prime Catcher and the Canceling Cologne in the deck, which you can really abuse with Palkia and Radiant Greninja. So, yeah, I like it a lot. I like it. Again, Palkia Raging Bolt looks pretty good. I think it looks promising. Again, play similar to like Goldengo in a way where you have that Palkia for the early game, but the V-Star power does help Raging Bolt out a lot, too, with its damage. We got another Sandy Shocks version here. Once again, top 8 of the tournament. We got another Palkia build here of the Raging Bolt deck. Playing the Clone and the Prime Catcher in there, too. Another Guardy build here of Raging Bolt. This one got top 4. This one actually did pretty good. I don't know, man. Am I sleeping on Guardy Raging Bolt? I don't know. We're definitely going to be trying out all the Raging Bolt decks. Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks, Raging Bolt Lost Zone, Raging Bolt Gardevoir, Raging Bolt Palkia. Man, I cannot wait for Temporal Forces to come out so we can try all these Raging Bolt decks out. It's just, I just can't wait. I'm just super excited. Another Palkia build here. Playing Koraidon in the deck. Also, no canceling clone in that build, though. Ooh, an Arc Raging Bolt deck. All right, so this is an interesting idea. So theoretically, another way to get energy into play is to use Arceus V-Star's Trading Nova attack. That makes sense. And also plays Zeraora VMAX in the deck. Now, Zeraora VMAX is pretty good against Lugia, against Pidgeot EX, and of course against Palkia. So you have a lightning attacker. And yeah, Arceus can put 3 energy into play. Now, you can't put the energy onto the Raging Bolt, obviously. You can't Arceus to Raging Bolt because it's an EX. However, you can use Energy Switch to move the energy around. You still have Sada in the deck to move and accelerate energy onto your Raging Bolts. I like the idea of this. It's an interesting concept. It reminds me of like an Arceus Darkrai V-Star idea, where you can use Arceus to put energy into play for the damage output, and you have that lightning attacker in the deck, too, which can help in certain matchups. Also playing the Dunsparce in the deck as a draw engine. I guess we can quickly show what that does. So yeah, its ability, once you're in turn, you can draw 3 cards. If you do, shuffle this card our cards attached to it back in your deck. So you do have to put the Dunsparce and the Dunsparce back in the deck, but you can then just rebench Dunsparce and then kind of loop that over and over again. Interesting idea over playing at Bibarel. Yeah, cool concept. Yeah, I don't hate it. To get top 16, another Lost Zone build, once again with hands. Another Sandy Shocks build here. We got another Guardy build here, once again, of the Raging Bolt deck. I mean, hey, until I don't know, I'm not convinced in it yet, but we'll see. Ooh, we got a Lost Zone build actually playing Iron Crown with Iron Hands. It does playing a couple Psychic Energy. I guess you can use that with the Iron Crown. I'm sure you all know what Iron Crown does, but I'm curious. Yeah, it's got that ability where your future Pokemon can do 20 more damage. It will make your Iron Hands do more damage, but it does also have an attack, Twin Shottles. This attack does 50 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. It's not affected by weakness or any effects. You can actually snipe Manaphy and Jirachi with this. I wonder if you can use that to snipe knock those things out so you can later on KO them with the Sableye. That's interesting, actually. Well, actually, this build doesn't even play Sableye. Never mind. There's no Sableye in this deck. I lied. Another Sandy Shocks build playing that Drillbur. Also playing Turbo Energize and Mist Energy. Another Gardevoir Raging Bolt deck. We got another Sandy Shocks Raging Bolt deck here once again. Another Guardy build of the Raging Bolt deck. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the deck's actually good. Another top 4 placement for Guardy. Maybe I'm sleeping on it. Maybe I'm just a hater. I'm just a hater, bro. Yeah, Sandy Shocks once again. Another Sandy Shocks build here, playing catchers, shoes, counter catcher, and stuff like that. Another Sandy Shocks build. More Sandy Shocks action there. Top 4. Another Sandy Shocks won a gym battle. Guardy here also did win a tournament. This Gardevoir build of Raging Bolt deck, did win that. More Sandy Shocks action here. Now, the Sandy Shocks build of the Raging Bolt. This one's playing the TM Devo. I mean, hey, you gotta beat Charizard somehow, right? I mean, Charizard is a very strong deck, and I guess TM Devo does make it a little bit easier to beat the big lizard. Another Raging Bolt deck here, playing Iron Leaves. Like I said, if you're playing the Sada engine, you can get away with playing Iron Leaves. It'll help your Charizard matchup even more. So instead of solely relying on the Raging Bolt, you can use Iron Leaves. I guess the one thing I like about Iron Leaves is you can Sada get energy into play and then passively build up energy with Sandy Shocks. So your opponent, if they're playing Charizard, they have to KO the Iron Leaves. They can't let the Iron Leaves live because it just runs over all their Charizards. So instead of bossing, Sandy Shocks to cripple the engine, they got to take out the Iron Leaves. And then in the background, you can slowly build up more energy. And then over the course of 2 turns, Sandy Shocks can put like 4 energy onto itself. So it's pretty interesting how that actually would work in the deck. Another build here, once again, with Sandy Shocks in the deck, playing in the Prime Catcher and stuff like that. Another build of Sandy Shocks. Again, a lot of Sandy Shocks. We're at the point now where we're kind of been seeing all the same decks. We're going to kind of scroll through most of these lists here and see if there's any other cool ideas. Energy Sticker in that one's interesting. That's another way to get energy into play for your Raging Bolt. There's another item card you can use to put energy into play. You can't put it on your Raging Bolt, but you could play a lightning Pokemon. You kind of already know what I'm talking about. I don't know if we've seen that yet. We'll see if anyone built that idea. I'm talking Electric Generator with Raging Bolt, if anyone's actually wondering what I was referring to there. Another build here, playing Morty. I kind of want to read Morty real quick, actually. I forget what it does. Oh, it's not. Oh, well, there it is. Okay. You can only use this card if you discard another card from your hand, draw a card for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. That's a very strong effect. It's not, like, insane, but it's not bad either. It's a good draw card. I mean, also, there's decks that want to discard cards from your hand, like, Raging Bolt wants to discard cards. Yeah. Interesting. Just 4 Sada, 1 Morty. All right, here we go. We got an Iron Hands build. Now, this one does not play the Electric Generator, but Iron Hands is still a card you can get away with in the deck because you can accelerate energy onto it. with the energy switch, but you can also Thornton Iron Hands into play. I guess if you spam Sandy Shocks long enough or Sada enough energy into play, you can Thornton into the Iron Hands. And that makes sense. An interesting idea. It's kind of like playing Hands in Roaring Moon right now. Same concept. Okay, more Sandy Shocks. Another Guardy build here. Another Sandy Shocks build here of the deck. Another Sandy Shocks build. Hey, we got another Palkia build here of the Raging Bolt deck. Like I said, I'm very excited to try out Palkia Raging Bolt. I think it's going to be really fun and good. I don't even know what I'm going to play first. Like, I don't even know. Like, there's a post-rotation tournament coming up soon when the new set drops. Bro, I don't even know what my first deck's going to be. Is it going to be Raging Bolt? I don't even know yet. Another Guardy Raging Bolt. Another Raging Bolt, Sandy Shocks. Another Sandy Shocks build here. Another Sandy Shocks build. Again, a lot of Sandy Shocks builds. Again, we've been seeing a lot of the same builds here. Yo, we got another Garchomp build here with Raging Bolt. And it's got the Sandy Shocks in the deck, too. Cool stuff. Yeah, Garchomp Raging Bolt is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully that makes Garchomp like actually have a limitless page at some point. That's my other point. A lot of Sandy Shocks. Ooh, a Xatu Raging Bolt deck. See, the ideas are blooming. Xatu does put energy into play with its ability where you can attach a psychic energy from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon and then draw 2 cards. That is a way to put energy into play for your Raging Bolt. And you do, of course, have the Sada to also get energy into play. So, yeah, I like that idea. Xatu Raging Bolt's a really cool concept, actually. See, there's a lot of energy acceleration cards in the format that do work. Mirage Gate, Xatu, Garchomp, Palkia, Arceus, Sandy Shocks. Like, there's all these different engines you can use. It's really cool. Another Palkia build here. I rate it. I like it. I like it. Another Sandy Shocks build. Another Sandy Shocks build here of the deck. More Sandy Shocks. Another Lost Zone engine with Iron Hands and Sableye, Fluttermane, and Slitherwing. Another Sandy Shocks build. More Sandy Shocks. Hey, more Palkia action. Let's go. Yeah, I'm excited for Palkia, man. I'm excited to try that out. Another Guardy Raging Bolt deck. Again, not sold on it. We're going to try it out when it comes out. I'm like, when Turbo Forces drops, I'm probably going to be doing some, I'm going to be streaming a lot, and I am definitely going to be trying out all the Raging Bolt decks, see if they're any good. More Sandy Shocks. Ooh, Patrol Cap. Interesting tech card to actually help against Great Tusk, which is kind of funny. Another Raging Bolt. Ooh, plain Maximum Belt as the ace spec. And a couple energy stickers in the deck. Interesting. Got another Sandy Shocks version here. Another Sandy Shocks build. Once again, playing that Iron Leaves in the deck. Like I said, really good card to have within a Sada deck because you can build up the Iron Leaves in one turn, technically, and then put it down. Another Palkia build here with Raging Bolt. I rate it. I like it. Another Sandy Shocks. Another Palkia build. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. More Sandy Shocks. More Sandy Shocks. That one does have that Koraidon EX in the deck. Like I said, Koraidon EX seems like it could be a good partner in the early game, so you can quickly get off the ground running with a big attack thanks to the help of Koraidon EX's ability. More Sandy Shock stuff. Another Palkia build here. I love it. Sandy Shocks. More Sandy Shocks. Another Palkia build. And then more Sandy Shocks. More Sandy Shocks. Just straight Sandy Shocks build. Another Palkia build here with the deck. And another Guardy build here of it. And then, ooh, we got a really spicy build. We got a Palkia build, but it's also playing Roaring Moon in the deck. I mean, if you're already playing the Sada, why not? I mean, Roaring Moon's a good attacker. Frenzy Gouging. Delete whatever is in the active spot. Seems like a pretty good card in my books. I mean, yeah, I think it's a perfectly good card to play in here. There's a lot going on in this deck with the Moon and the Bolts and stuff and the Palkia, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Sandy Shocks again. Sandy Shocks. And we got another Palkia build. And another Sandy Shocks playing the Iron Leaves in the deck to help against the Zard matchup. And more Sandy Shocks. Another Guardy build here once again. Sandy Shocks. Ooh. This one's playing Charizard in the deck. I like the idea of Radiant Charizard. You don't get Greninja, which I feel like Greninja's probably just too good not to play in the deck, but there is some value in playing Charizard. You get a nice big late game attacker. Sometimes or Raging Bolt doesn't, kind of get there at the end of the game. Sometimes you fumble the attachments and stuff. You never know what can happen, right? You get like a really bad Iono. That's where having Radiant Charizard could come in handy. I mean, if you wanted to play Zard in this deck, you could also play some energy switches, so you can Sada plus energy switch and attack with Charizard even earlier on in the game. So I kind of like that idea too, with Charizard. And then lastly, we got another Sandy Shocks build to end off the list here. But there you go. Those are all the early Raging Bolt decks from Japan. I'm pretty sure these were all the lists. Yeah, all the lists to look at. Again, a lot of really cool energy acceleration engines. We saw, Sada. There's Mirage Gate. There's Palkia V-Star. There's Garchomp EX, Arceus V-Star, Koraidon EX. So many ways to build up your Raging Bolt EX, and I am very excited for Raging Bolt. It's definitely going to be a very strong card. There's got to be at least one way it does good in a tournament. There's so many different engines and versions of the deck out there, and so many different ways you can play. There's got to be some way to play that is perfect, and I'm excited. I definitely really like the Palkia build of the deck. I think that's the one that has the most promise. In my opinion, that might be the best build of Raging Bolt, but I'm definitely interested in like a more streamlined Raging Bolt Sandy Shocks deck. But again, I'm a big fan of the Palkia version. I like the idea of playing Iron Leaves. The Mirage Gate Lost Zone engine seems pretty good. There's a lot of ways to play Raging Bolt. And like I said, I'm excited. Let me know what you think of Raging Bolt down below. What was your favorite Raging Bolt deck? Let me know in the comments below. I'll leave a link to Pokebook and Justin Basil if you want to go check out the 2 websites I used for today's video for the list and the translations. And that'll be for me. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as always. And I'll catch you on another video here on the second channel. Bye-bye.